Welcome into WJHI Studios. You are currently watching on WJHI, the Red Devil Network. You could be also watching on cable channel 184 for WJHI. I am Blake Beams, and today WJHI brings to you a special presentation as we have an interview with now JHS softball field coach honoree, Mr. David Hatfield. Mr. Hatfield, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Yeah, we're all glad you're here, and once again, congratulations on the field being named after you. It's quite the honor, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Started softball back in the late 70s, out in the middle of nowhere. Had a softball, there's an old PE backstop out there. Put up the field, cut out the diamond. Doc Bolton, who was a football coach back then. I coached with him back in 1964, but he came to me when I first came back to Jeff I, after a couple, 3 stops before that. Came to me and I said, we need to get a softball program going. The year before, New Albany and Floyd Central both had started a program, a slow pitch. So we got on it and got it done. Very little budget, practically no budget, and to work with. So Doc Bolton and I basically donated money for building the field as well as our time to build the field.
Well, here we are over 50 years later, and we're still holding strong here.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Softball is moving good. We started slow pitch back then because that's all was being played. There's a few teams over in the Louisville area. I think the first year we played a total of 10 games because that's all opponents we could find. Paying the umpires $5 an umpire, I think, something like that. So things have changed over the many years.
Yeah, well, once again, we're glad to have you, and if you don't mind, we got a few questions we want to ask you. We're going to go over, and
okay.
I kind of want to start from the beginning, and we're going to go all the way back when you first got here to JHS specifically. So, what really led you to finding this position as a lifetime teacher here at Jeffersonville, and really the softball coach as well?
Well, I played high school down in Middlesboro, Kentucky, down in Bell County, way down the hills of Kentucky. I played football, basketball, baseball, all 3 sports back then. And I was able to, with my football skills, I was asked to do a walk-on type of thing at Eastern Kentucky. And after I'd gone for 2 weeks there through the early practice, the coach came to me and told me to go over and register for school. Back then, it was $99 a semester to go to college, carry 12 to 15 credit hours. So then after that, there was an old AAA type of football team here called the Louisville Raiders. And I said, well, during my playing days at Eastern, I'd gotten some letters from different pro teams. So nothing really worked out of that. So I said, well, I'm not ready to quit football right now. So I moved to Jeffersonville. Moved in with my brother, who was with a Kroger company here in Jeffersonville. Moved in with him and was able to play with the Louisville Raiders. And at the time, I was here in Jeffersonville, so went up and talked to Herman Miller, I think it was, who is the old trustee of the Utica Township. So my first year of teaching and coaching was at Utica Elementary School, the old school, the old rock school, 2 or 3 blocks off of Main Street up in Utica. It still stands there. But I was able to get a job there teaching math and science, I think it was, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I was playing football with the Louisville Raiders at the time. We got paid, we practiced 3 days a week, I think, and got $50 a week, I think it was, something like that. So at that time, I was able, came across Doc Bolton, who was a football coach. So first year while I was at Utica, I was sort of, catch as catch can. I wasn't with him really the entire time. Then the next year, I got on to downtown at the old Jeffersonville High School at the Nahan Field House. What's there today, there's a big building there back then. And I was teaching geography and health, I think, at the time there, and coaching football at Jeffersonville High School. So that basically was my first 1963, 64, something like that, was my first contact with Jeffersonville High School.
Well, you definitely got your history down. We could say that. That was quite the memory there to go all the way back then.
When you're 83 years old, you're just glad you got your memory.
It's always great. So you mentioned that you kind of started teaching a little bit before you really got into coaching. You established the softball program early 70s, is that right? And you were teaching at a place like Utica way before that. Do you feel that teaching is going to like override the coaching when it comes to your legacy here?
I've coached a lot of different sports. I coached football with Doc Bolton the first time. Then I went to, I got a graduate assistantship to coach football and get my master's degree at Indiana State with Bill Jones. And I was there for 1 year. And in Terre Haute, Indiana, you don't want to spend more than a year there, 9 months at the most, because there's a wood plant west of that, and it stinks constantly. So while I was there, we had a lot of snowstorms that I didn't really like, and I was engaged to my present wife of 57 years. We got married in 1965, and I said, we're going west. We're going to see what's out there. I've never been basically out of Kentucky and Indiana, so we moved west, got married, and the next week after we got married, moved to Anaheim, California, a job that I was able to get while I went through the placement service there at Indiana State. And I told them I'll interview for a job anywhere west of the Mississippi River. So I hooked up with Anaheim, California. They were recruiting teachers back then, as well as everybody's recruiting teachers right now.
So it seems like you've been everywhere, not just Utica and Jeff High. It seems like you're going everywhere when it comes to teaching.
While I was there, I coached football and coached football. At one time, I had won 40 consecutive games, something like that. But also in 1970, they asked me if I was interested in being the varsity head baseball coach there at Anaheim High School, and they had a rich tradition of baseball. Baseball is sort of a king type of thing in California because they can play year-round. So I was very fortunate that I was able to put a team together, a good team together, and was Orange County Baseball Coach of the Year for 1 year. And that is like not here in Clark or Floyd County, but there's like 60 high schools in Orange County, California. So I was able to do that. Then my wife sort of got homesick. We had a child, sort of got homesick, and we were there for 9 years. We did practically everything that could be done. I was had a sideline pass to the first Super Bowl. I was when the Indiana played in the Rose Bowl, had a sideline pass to that through a very good friend of mine from high school and college, Lee Majors, who's known as the $6 Million Man. He and I were very good friends, and we were together like every weekend, every other weekend, saw a lot of filming, met a lot of movie stars while we were out there. So we decided that family was more important. So then we moved back to southern Indiana. We were back to purchase Kratz Sporting Goods, who the Krebs own now. But Kratz Sporting Goods, I'd been involved with kids and coaching and teaching and so on. And business was not really my type of thing. So I was doing that for 6 months, 8 months, something like that. Then I got back into education as a temporary sub type of thing. Basically over in Jefferson County, first of all, a good friend of mine, quarterback from my college team, Tony Lanham, was the head coach over at Iroquois High School. He asked me to come over, and the principal over there told me I had a job, but it was like a handshake, and a handshake back then is when Jefferson County and Louisville merged together into one school corporation, and as a result, I wasn't comfortable with that, and that's when I was able to taught elementary PE out at TJ for 3 years, and then they asked me to come back here to Jeffersonville High School with Twyman Patterson as the coach then, asked me to coach football, and eventually got into softball at the same time.
Well, recently, like I said, the softball field recently got named after you, and
right.
You kind of shared the honor for that day with former JHS football head coach Bill Ware.
Right.
What are your experiences with Coach Ware, and how has he impacted you throughout your career here?
He, I was when he came in. He was also went to Eastern Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky University back then. When I went, it was a state teachers college. But anyway, he came in, and he was, as I recall, he and old Rock Hurley was coaching the freshman team, and I was coaching the varsity with Twyman Patterson. Then after that, Twyman retired, and I wasn't interested. I got the softball going, and I became more interested because I'd used to been coaching in California with 35,000 people at a high school game, and which will blow your mind. And as a result, I wasn't really interested in taking the head coaching job with the football, and that's when he stepped in and took over that. So we were together during that period, during his early years with the football program, but then he took over the varsity job.
All right, well, you mentioned the JHS softball, how you tried to kind of focus on that once Ware took over that head
Right.
coaching job. So recently, JHS announced that that brand new softball facility, the practice facility, will be coming out. How do you feel that's going to impact the JHS softball program and what it holds for the future?
Well, the softball program at Jeff High has been good for quite a while, but this is just another plus for them. I remember when we started softball, we had a PE backstop out there and had a 3-foot outfield fence, had bleachers that, or we found some bleachers somewhere. We had benches for the team. It was a portable bench type thing that we found somewhere around the building or somewhere and moved them out there. They, our first uniforms were for old, I found a set of old basketball uniforms that were a shirt sleeve type thing. So we had that for 2 or 3 years. But he and I basically built the field out there. And it was started slow pitch for the beginning up until I think 85, they switched over to fast pitch. And I was there when we were transitioning from slow pitch to fast pitch.
Yeah, and with that development, how proud are you that you kind of set the foundation for this JHS softball program? Coach Clark right now teaches here at
Right.
Jeff High. He's also the head coach.
Right.
How has he been with you? Was he the direct under you, or was there somebody else?
No, there was a number of coaches after me. I think Phil Burns was a while. Rod Swearingen did a very big part of it. He was with it for a long period of time. And then the Coons guy, I think, came in. A lot of times the coaches come in when their daughter's playing and that type of thing, which is, neither here nor there, but they have interest in keeping the program going, developing a good program. So Shad had one daughter playing. Now she's a freshman or sophomore up at Ball State, and now he has another daughter, a senior on the team, which is fine. We need people that have interest in the program, and I can see, the program is very good and will remain good. Becky Bailey, the assistant coach, she came to me as a little old skinny freshman, and when we were transitioning from slow pitch to fast pitch, and she was skilled enough to play with the big girls type of thing. So as a freshman, she was starting at third base. We were transitioning again from slow pitch to fast pitch, so we probably were one of the first travel ball teams type of thing, because I wanted these kids to be exposed to how fast pitch softball should be played. So I took them down to Nashville for a couple of weekend trips. I think we left the principal, Mr. Henning let us out. Henning or Weber, I can't remember which one. I think it's Mr. Henning. Let us out of school half a day on Friday. So we drove to Nashville and played 3 games on Friday and 4 on Saturday, and then stayed over and came back on Sunday. But this gave them an opportunity to see how softball, fast pitch softball was actually going. And then we also took a trip to St. Louis and played like a weekend series just on a Friday evening and Saturday in St. Louis, Missouri as well.
Well, we only got about one more question here for you.
Okay.
But before we advance, I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in to WJHI, the Red Devil Network, where we are currently interviewing former JHS coach, softball coach, Mr. David Hatfield. The field was recently named after him, and once again, a big congratulations. We'll get a bit more to that
Thank you.
in the outro, but as we kind of start to wrap up, I've got one final question, and probably the biggest that everybody else is thinking. What do you think your legacy is going to leave behind here at JHS?
I've taught at JHS over 3 segments of my life, which has extended over 7 decades. I started teaching in 1963, 64. Then I was in California, came back in the late 70s. So then I taught health and PE. Along with that, I was also instrumental in starting the weight program here at Jeffersonville High School, starting out with Universal Gyms, and it's expanded now. Al Raby followed me there when I retired in '98. Which was 25 years ago, and now Danny Struck is doing an outstanding job with it. So my legacy is, then when I retired, I was out for like 5 years, sort of got bored, missed the contact with the students, and I've been a permanent sub like for the last 20 years, I guess. And speaking to some of the other teachers around here, I have missed one day of not being here in the last 3 years. My dad put a very strong work ethic in his children, and I have taken that.
Yeah. Well, once again, we truly do thank you, Mr. Hatfield, for joining us here on WJHI, the Red Devil Network. Congratulations again on the softball field, and we are so excited to keep these upcoming years with you. And, we're thrilled to have you here. We're thrilled you did this interview, and I'm thrilled that you tuned in to WJHI, the Red Devil Network. Make sure you do tune in to 98.5 WJHI. This Friday, there's a game, 7 p.m. You can catch all of our interviews as well there. Of course, this one's going to go up there. I'm sure you could watch that. It's going to be on cable channel 184 as well, and WJHI.com for our live radio. Mr. David Hatfield, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
I've been Blake Beams. On behalf of Coach David Hatfield, this has been WJHI, and thank you for tuning in.